a lot of what you do in our video world is really relationships, and it's kind of who you know.
The big reason referrals are so powerful is because there's that trust factor too. You imagine like just a person just randomly reaching out, like cold calling or cold emailing a company saying, hey, I'm a videographer. Would you be interested in working with me? If they have no idea who you are, just the fact that someone knows who you are can make a big difference. But then how do you also combat that as a business owner when maybe there's down seasons and like there's not as much work coming in?
Some months you're doing great. Other months you don't make as much as nearly you think. Yeah, I would say
Welcome to the Post Show Podcast. I'm your host, John the Video Guy. In today's episode, I sit down with Wade Clark. Wade is the co-owner of Cleveland Video Company and works full-time at BoxCast as part of their marketing team. In our conversation, we dive deep into what it takes to start and run a successful video business. We talk about the best opportunities for new videographers who are just starting out, what Wade looks for in hiring video editors, and how to grow your video business with the power of referrals. We cover a lot in our conversation, and I'm excited to share this episode with you. But before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to Riverside. I used Riverside to not only record this episode of my podcast, but I also used their Magic Clips feature to automatically create short form pieces of content from the original podcast recording, saving me hours of time. And we all know how precious our time is as video editors. So if you'd like to check them out, you can use my link down in the show notes and start a free trial today. You can save up to 15% off one of their plans by using my coupon code JTVG at checkout. Thank you, Riverside. And now please welcome Wade Clark to the show. Wade, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. Excited to be here.
Yeah, how have you been doing? It's nice to see you on. How has life been?
Life is good. Yeah. I mean, in our video world, things tend to slow down a little bit from like November, December, January, but it's actually sort of a good time to catch up, go through your processes and really just kind of figure out what you want to do for the next year. So we're going into 2025. So it's been nice because it's been a little slower. You can kind of catch your breath and actually maybe work on some things that you really enjoy versus just kind of doing client work the whole time.
That is true. Yeah. I'm kind of in a similar boat. It's still a little busy, but it is nice to work on those processes. So For those that don't know, me and Wade actually met last year when I left Rock the House, where I used to work for about 9 years. Started freelancing. He reached out on Instagram and hired me to start editing some of his videos and also shooting some of the events and different things and projects that you had going on. So that's how we met. But I wanted to bring you on today because I feel like a lot of video editors are in that situation where they're trying to get work. They're trying to, establish relationships with clients. They're trying to get opportunities where they can, edit different projects. So I'm excited for our conversation because I think it's going to be very valuable for a lot of video editors that are looking at learning how to build relationships and really grow their career as they start working on projects. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to ask you about your backstory. So how did you get into video production? What was kind of like your backstory, your story getting into the video production world?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's a little untraditional than most. I got into video production about 11 years ago now, so in 2013. And I was actually just at college, and I was a business major. I just was doing business management and human resources, and I was on a track and cross-country team with another guy who was in marketing. And we weren't really friends at the time either, which is funny, but we were, acquaintances. We were on the track team together, and we were in the same marketing club, and he needed help making a video. And I was like just trying to be that eager sophomore that's like, I'll help and make a video. This will be great for my resume. And little did I know, we made that video, had so much fun doing it. And then he entered into an entrepreneurship contest about making a business that just made, small videos for small businesses, basically. So nothing crazy, something that we could act on right now. And he ended up winning that entrepreneurship contest. And so I went to the University of Mount Union, and basically over the summer, they gave us a $2,500 grant to start a business, buy a camera, do what you do when you start a business, which, again, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just in college. But yeah, that's how we slowly kind of trickled into the video world. And it really just stemmed from going around to businesses in Alliance, Ohio, which if you've been to Alliance, Ohio, it's actually a little more booming than it was. But we just went around to businesses and then walked in and said, hey, do you guys want a video? A lot of them said no. Some of them said yes. But what we learned while we were at Mount is it's a lot about relationships. And one of our first really big gigs was we started working for the Alliance Community Hospital just because our coach's ex-wife actually was working there, and they connected us and we started working there. So my journey wasn't, I didn't go to film school. I didn't go into college thinking I was going to be into video production, but I really latched onto it there and found kind of like a love for making videos. And then also like the business side of it was very interesting as well. So that's kind of how I got started. And then it's really kind of evolved since then over the 10 years, from making anything from wedding videos to corporate interviews to a lot of live streaming content. So yeah, that's kind of the quick story on how I got started.
Wow, that's really cool. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people kind of have that passion for video from a very young age, but it sounds like you actually found that when you were in college and later on, actually. Because I saw you went for business management, correct?
Yeah.
When you were at Mountain Union. How has that degree or pursuing that as a major helped you in your video production business?
I think where actually it has helped the most is with just knowing other business people to ask questions to. I don't know if necessarily the classes kind of lined up with making a video business, if that makes sense. A lot of the classes we were taught were more kind of big business where it was, hey, you're going to work in a factory and manage people on the floor and do whatever. But what it really helped with is getting you started with just connections of knowing people in the business world and then being able to have coffee with them or have a meeting with them and talk to them. Hey, I'm trying to start this business. What do I need to look out for? Like I'll never forget one of our, I'll call him an advisor, I guess you could say. He was an entrepreneurship professor at the time there. He said, hey, first thing you're going to do is get an accountant. And at the time we were like, that's dumb. We don't need an accountant. We could do this in QuickBooks. But I always think about him because now we have an accountant. There's someone that is super helpful to us in our business and just making sure we're doing all the things correctly and everything like that. But again, without having a conversation with someone who was in business and maybe someone who's, maybe more of a creative, you might not get that particular advice. So I think that's where kind of the business side of it helped. And we still go back to Mount and talk to their business classes and talk to entrepreneurship classes, which again, it's all just that networking of building people in that world to then help us if we have questions.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like that's one of the big things a lot of video editors don't realize, especially if they want to start freelancing or even start their own agency or company, is like you have to be good almost at both, like running a business, client relationships, sales, marketing, but then also shooting, video editing, and doing all the creative stuff as well. And, it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, people, sometimes they just have a part-time job, full-time job. And that's their thing. And some people do have that entrepreneurial mindset where they want to go and start their business. But yeah, it is a very interesting career choice you kind of have to make. Like for me, I worked for a place for 9 years, and it just felt kind of natural that would be like the next step for me to launch my own business or become a freelancer. But yeah, at your time at Mount Union, you said you were at track and cross country. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is videography as a career, especially in live events. You need a lot of stamina. Would you say your cross country and track has helped you kind of like elongate your career or build up your stamina as a videographer?
John, I don't know if I've ever been asked that question, but the way you ask it is totally correct, because you do need a lot of stamina. There are very long days where, you might have to go for 14 or 16 hours and just kind of be on all day and keep going. Also, I think with doing track and cross country, it sounds silly, but that's kind of kept me fit for the last like 10, 15 years, just because I've always been running and trying to stay active and healthy. And it kind of helped you, set goals when I was there, which then ultimately helped me kind of achieve goals in our business. And yeah, I would say, the video production, people might think we're just clicking buttons and not doing anything, but it can be mentally, taxing, and then also physically a little bit too. Just to give you an example, my business partner, Josh, the guy I was talking about earlier, and someone else we work with, they went on a cruise and did a project for a customer, and they had to lug all this gear on the cruise, and they had to like set it all up quickly. And Josh was just telling me like that was so physically demanding. It sounds silly, but it was like so physically demanding just to get in the door and like get all our stuff off the plane, do this, lug it all around, throw it in cars, go over here. That he was like, luckily, I was able to do that. Or like there are some people we work with and we know that they would have struggled with something like that. So yeah, so I guess everyone should just run track when they go to college so you can be better at video.
Yeah, this should be the number one extracurricular activity if you're gonna go down want to become a live, specifically like live event or like videography, where you're running around shooting. Definitely, you have to keep in mind the stamina and like being physically fit to do so.
Right.
So you've done a lot of different live events. I was kind of curious. I did want to ask you, what is your favorite type of event? Are they weddings? Do you like doing corporate events out of all the different event types there are?
Yeah, no, I would say my favorite is actually just doing live conferences where it sounds boring to most, but just there's someone on stage, there's 8 hours of content, and there's maybe like, let's say there's, 6 or 7 presentations that you just need to live switch, then live stream somewhere. That could be to Zoom, that could be to YouTube, that could be to someone's website. But right now, I think those are my favorite events because I really like the setting up for the event, because it kind of pushes you to like, how do I make this creative and not super boring? But then also like when you get set down, everything's set up. There's kind of this odd satisfaction to just being able to live switch it. Everything's working, PowerPoint's on the screen, the audio's working. It's one of those things that I really, really do enjoy. We did dabble a lot in weddings when we first started. We did a lot of weddings for our friends and family and, random people that would reach out to us. But for me, weddings have kind of been put on the backside just because of the editing, really, which I know, John, you're phenomenal at editing. But for me, it's just one of those things where it never took me super long to edit a wedding. It's just the sitting down and actually doing it. I always tell people that I feel like creating any kind of video, it's like writing a paper. It's kind of hard to get started. The middle is always kind of easy because you kind of get in a flow, and then you're like, how do I end this? Like, how do I make this so I can like wrap it up and really show what I've just put together? But yeah, long-winded answer to say I do really just like live events. And I think the other reason I like those too is because I personally like interfacing with the client quite a bit. So like talking to the client, making sure they're happy. Generally, a lot of times when the budget is there and we can, I kind of consider myself like a floater at the job where it's like I could switch, I could run a camera, but also, hey, I go over to the client, hey, is everything good? Are you good? Is the live stream good? And just making sure that their needs are met, along with obviously the technical needs of the event.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to weddings, it is very tedious to edit a wedding film. So I can see like why you're kind of a little hesitant, like you kind of want to take a little bit step back from that. Because it is a lot of editing.
And again, too, just as I've grown up and now I have a family and kids and stuff like that, spending your whole Saturday somewhere, it's a little harder now versus when I was 23, 24. I didn't have any responsibilities, really. I could just be like, yeah, I'll shoot 2 weddings in a row. It doesn't matter. And you had a little more time back then. So right now I have to be a little more conscious of my time. And the one thing I didn't mention about live events that I also like is, generally speaking, when the event's over, there is no editing. You've already edited it all in the switcher. You've already switched all the camera angles and stuff like that. So you're just done. You pack up and the event's over and it's online because you live streamed it and the client's happy.
Yep. Where weddings, you film everything and then you have to creatively tell that story and put it together afterwards.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with weddings. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a different kind of creativity that you have to use to make a wedding successful.
I was curious for people starting out in videography specifically, where do you think there's the most largest opportunity? Would it be weddings? Would you recommend a beginning videographer to dabble in weddings, dabble in corporate? Where would you, if you had to do it all over again in today's market too, because, times have changed with technology and everything. Well, what would be your advice for, beginning videographers out there?
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. Times of changing, John. When we started doing video in 2013, I always say people didn't even know what they want to do with the video. They would be like, I think it's going on my website. That's probably the case. Now, obviously, they have you have Reels, you have TikTok, you've got Facebook, you got all these places to post the video. So kind of coming up with a strategy with your clients always good. But I think if I were to restart, or like better yet, if I were to move to a different city and I had to restart my business, I think you might want to try dabbling in weddings. And again, if you've never done a wedding, do one for your friend or family. Give them the expectation of, this is my first wedding. I'm trying to learn still, because you're going to mess things up along the way. It's okay. That happens. But once you get in the flow and you do 4 or 5 weddings, you'll go, okay, now I know, hey, I got to talk to the DJ, make sure I get audio. Okay, ooh, if the lighting is really bad, I have to move the camera and like just get a better shot. I know when I first started, you're so nervous to be like, I'm locked in, I don't want to mess the shot up, but this doesn't look good. It's like, no, you just got to move, make it look good, and deal with the editing later of like, cutting out that part that maybe didn't look so good. But I would think you start with some weddings. That really helps you kind of be creative, and especially be creative on the spot. And I think the other thing you do is you go to events in your area that maybe need video, and you might have to do some video for free and just say, hey, I saw you have this 5K race that doesn't have a video. Can I make you a video? And then, you could shoot them, say, hey, like usually to make a video like this, it costs $250. Like, do you guys have budget for that? And they're like, no, we don't. You're like, okay, that's okay. I'd still want to make you the video. Because if you're free and you're not busy with other stuff, I would still encourage someone to go, hey, go make them a video, because that's only in theory going to lead to more clients, or hopefully next year when they have that event, oh, hey, that guy did a really good job last year on our video. Let's see if we can have him back. And that's when you can maybe charge them a little more. Not to go too off the deep end with this, John, but I'll give you a real life example. Speaking of a 5K video, back in 2016, I just had been out of college. There was this 5K race that I always ran when I was in high school, and they wanted a video. And we ended up doing it for free, had a lot of fun, flew our drone, did this, make them a whole video, right? Where that video has led me today is it got me in contact with someone who was on the board of that 5K. She wasn't, getting paid to be on the board. She was just like someone who helped. And she worked for a company that's called Plant Strong. And they, had a whole kind of, I'll call it, they make plant-based foods, and they also have plant-based conferences, and they have all this other events and stuff they do all year. From that free 5K video, I started working with her, and we made them like a first video we did was like a 10-minute video. Then I ended up going to Arizona for 7 days and doing an event with them. Then we go to North Carolina with them every year and do their event there. So again, that's not going to happen all the time. You're going to do plenty of videos that lead to nothing. I've done that too. But you never know what doing a video, who will see it, who you'll impress by it, and where they work, or what they do on their side that might need you at their job. So we've definitely done a couple things like that where it's like we've done something for free and it's led to like something very successful on our end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, referrals are a big part of business too, I mean, you do something really great for a client, and then they know someone that maybe it's not them, but it's someone else that might need a video, and they refer that person to you because they know that you can do a great job. I was curious, how has that helped grow your business, Cleveland Video Company?
Yeah, referrals and word of mouth is our main source of how we get business. We've never really ran ads. We're very bad at social media because I'm the one who has to do it. So it's one of those things where our networking and our ability to just hopefully, impress our clients to then get referred to another client has luckily been very good over these years. And again, I think I was telling you this, John, the last time I saw you in person, is a lot of what you do in our video world is really relationships, and it's kind of who you know. I know I was talking to another videographer who does great work, and he was telling me how he's working with, they're building these pickleball courts in Cleveland, and he knew the guy who's like running the whole pickleball courts, and now he's doing video series for him on like launching these pickleball courts in Cleveland. Again, sounds silly, but like he knew the guy beforehand, and then he's ended up doing the pickleball. Like, so he said, "Hey, I'm trying to make all these pickleball courts happen," and now he's like, "Hey, I already worked with you. Let's go and make some more videos for this." But yeah, I think a lot of it is word of mouth, a lot of it's relationships, or a lot of it too is connecting with other videographers like we did, John, and just knowing, hey, like, they have other relationships that you can work for them, and they'll be able to help you. You're not ever going to steal someone's business. If they hire you to come do something, you're not going to go behind them and say, hey, I could do it cheaper or do it better. But it's always nice to have other people to work with, one, to just get more experience, and two, to just like learn how they operate their business, and they become a resource to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the big reason referrals are so powerful is because there's that trust factor too. Like people trust you to, you imagine like just a person just randomly reaching out, like cold calling or cold emailing a company saying, hey, I'm a videographer. I've done these videos. Would you be interested in working with me? If they have no idea who you are, just the fact that someone knows who you are can make a big difference, because they just have an idea of who you are, whether that's creating a brand on social media or having other clients that can refer you. It's a very powerful, tool to grow your business.
Absolutely.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, so you started your business, Cleveland Video Company, but you also work full time, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So you work full time at BoxCast. For those that aren't familiar, can you explain what that company is and what they do?
Yeah, exactly. So I work for a company called BoxCast. I've actually worked there the last 8.5 years, and they're a live streaming company. So they sell a product that's called a Boxcaster. Well, now it's called Spark, but it's basically a live streaming encoder in a box. So all you do is plug in a camera, plug in the internet, and it live streams to wherever you'd like. So you can go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, your website, all at the same time, very easily. They started doing this again in like 2013, 2014, when live streaming was not nearly as popular as it was today or is today. And their real niche was making live streaming super easy for anyone. And I did customer support there for the first 5 years, and now I'm on the marketing team there. But it really was, I'd be talking to someone who had never even held a camera or never even dreamed that they could live stream. And I was like, okay, you got your camera in your hand, plug the box in, you got plug it into internet, plug in your camera, go into our dashboard and just schedule a live stream, and you can be up and running in no time. And I walked so many people through how to live stream that had never had any technical skill to do that. Now there's obviously a ton of ways to live stream. Even something like, StreamYard or Riverside or OBS, Wirecast, vMix. There's all these ways to live stream. But still, BoxCast carves a niche out in the market of just being like, hey, we're going to give you this encoder that is meant just to do that, versus using your computer that's meant to do 1,000 things. I know we have a ton of horror stories of customers where it's like, oh, my Windows computer just started to update on a Sunday morning because they had been avoiding it, and they right before their church service. But yeah, so I worked there, and again, I was in tech support for 5 years. Now I'm on the marketing team where I just make videos, and I'm really, really fortunate with BoxCast, because what they allow me to do is they give me the flexibility to also run my business plus work there. It's one of those things where I don't think I could ever recreate what this kind of relationship I have with BoxCast versus another company. Everyone knows that me and Josh have Cleveland Video Company. It's not a secret. I don't have to hide that. Sometimes when I go on jobs, I just say, hey, I've got a job on Monday, and I just take my time off. And like everyone's okay with that. So it really is, like I said, it's a unique relationship I have with that company. But what's nice is it lets me work on some of my creative skills there when I'm making videos. And then also what they get out of me having Cleveland Video Company is, since we do so much live streaming, we're using their product at our events that we like stream. So I am what you would call, and hopefully this doesn't sound like I'm bragging, but I am a super user of their product. So I know all the ins and outs of how it works, what could be better, what's the best. And it's one of those things where I think they find a lot of value in that, being that someone that like, hey, you actually go out and live stream, give us some feedback on what our customers actually want. And we can provide that because we actually do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. It's a very unique relationship, it sounds like, to be able to work there and then also run your company. Because I feel like a lot of times you just kind of have to keep that a secret. Like, yeah, I'm doing this thing on the side. A lot of companies aren't that, open about that.
Yeah, it definitely is. And a lot of our times we always recommend BoxCast to these other people. Or like one of our clients that we just started working with about 1.5 years ago just bought a BoxCast account 2 months ago, so that all their events they stream this year, which will be streamed with us, are on BoxCast. So we've referred plenty of people to them to have them sign up and be like, hey, here's the service we used for your event. It sounds like you guys got a lot of events. You should probably think about signing up for your own BoxCast service. And they end up doing so. So yeah, so it's a mutually beneficial relationship, I think, between the both of us.
Cool. And I can't remember if you mentioned this. How did you start at BoxCast? Did you apply to them?
Yeah. So my business partner, Josh, also works there. So that's where it gets really dicey and fun, where he started working there in 2014, almost 10 years ago, or, a little over 10 years ago, I guess. He started working there in 2014. He just sent them a cold email and just said, hey, I'm a kid. I just graduated college. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I like video stuff, and you guys do live streaming. Let's try to make a connection. Also, Mountain Union actually used BoxCast at the time. So he used the connection of like, hey, so the person who was at Mount, that connection, they kind of showed me how it works, and they told me I should reach out. So again, it was kind of like this person knew someone, and then Josh kind of reached out, and they were like, hey, we don't have much for you, but we can have you working 6 hours a week for support, because BoxCast was only like a 10-person team then. And he took that opportunity to do that. And then, he worked there and obviously got a full-time job. And then fast forward 2 years, the manager of the customer support team, I saw him out at a dinner, and he just said, hey, we have this position opening. Would it be something that interests you? And I said, as long as I can still do my business and I can help you guys, I'm totally in. And they were totally okay with that. So it's always been a very flexible, like they've always known, it's never been a secret. And that was again in 2016. So, and it started as part-time, 20 hours, 25 hours a week. And then eventually after a couple months, it moved to full-time as they grew.
Nice. That's really cool. And, times have changed quite a bit since you first started there. You now have a family. I was curious, how has your work changed when building a family? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like you said, like when you're early 20s, you go to these weddings, you can work, 2 weddings in a row, Saturday nights, every Saturday's booked, you can really burn yourself out. But I think as you build a family, that can change. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what really happens is I think your prices kind of go up, and you kind of get a little more selective of what you're going to do. Again, going back to that Sedona trip, this is a good example. So in 2016, I went to Sedona, and I said, hey, here's my price. I think I said, like, I don't even remember. It was maybe like $1,600 to be gone for like 7 days. Cause I was like, a kid, I wanted to go, I wanted it to be awesome. I was like, this is, going to be so cool and fun, whatever. They actually came back to me this year, and they're like, hey, do you want to go to Sedona, you and Josh? And we were like, yeah, we can. But the price was like times 5, times 6, that original price, because Josh has a family. I have a family. If you want us to be gone for 6 or 7 days, it's really tough on, again, not super tough on our families. We have support, but it puts a little strain on the family when you're not around to help. So I think how building the business kind of affects that is you're a little more selective with what you're going to say yes to. And also sometimes when you have that project that may seem like a home run, you're going to quote a little bit more. Just to give you another example, we just had someone reach out, and they had a project for us that was down in Dayton, Ohio, which for me, that's about 3.5, 4 hours away, which totally means like, even like, okay, if we do, let's say we shoot on a Tuesday, we're going to have to go Monday, stay in a hotel, shoot it Tuesday, then drive home. In the past, we would have quoted it much less, but this time around we said, hey, ballpark quote is this. And they said, hey, we don't have the budget for that. And we were okay with that, because we're like, to go to Dayton, Ohio and spend 2 full days there, it's just a lot on us. And then Josh and me and the families, it just, like I said, you're a little more selective nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious too, because you mentioned you raised your prices, you're more selective, but then how do you also combat that as a business owner when maybe there's down seasons and like there's not as much work coming in? Because it is very lumpy, when it comes to video production.
It definitely is.
There's busy seasons, especially in like live events. I remember when I used to work at Rock the House, like May, October would be like packed with like, events.
Yep.
So I was just curious, how do you balance that out as a business owner?
Yeah, I would say those are the months that you want to either experiment a little bit or try to go get new business. And that could be seeing an event online and going, hey, let me see if I can make a video for them, and kind of just shooting them an email or giving them a call. But I think the down months are really the months where you work on your business and you're not kind of just trying to like float above water. Like you said, between like May and October, it's flying. Every moment you get to breathe, you're like, I just want to just chill, relax. I don't maybe want to change my email signature. I know it sounds silly, but do something that the business requires. But I think during the down months financially, luckily that's where BoxCast helps us because we're getting paid from them. But I think financially, what you want to do is try to find clients that we don't really. I'm going to back up to not saying that we have clients necessarily on retainer, but you want to find those clients that will kind of have work for you monthly. And that could be, that's where the editing part comes in, I think, because we have 2 or 3 clients that come to us monthly just for editing, and those edits don't slow down during the seasons, if that makes sense, because it's every month they're, hey, we have this and that. And I know I've worked with John, and John's been taking over some of that editing work for me, and he's been amazing. But that particular client comes back every month, and they have edits, and they have this, and they have new videos they want to do. So I think if you're trying to kind of combat those down months, try to find that editing work that you can just do in your basement and you don't have to go out in the cold and do. And again, one way to do that is just maybe you have a podcast that you really like and you notice, hey, they don't actually have a lot of production behind this and they're just kind of like pushing it out. Reach out to them and see if you can help. It's just simple as like, hey, I don't know if you guys have an editor, but I'd love to edit clips for you. I'd love to do this. Here's my pricing. Let me know what you think. Again, I just started working with a doctor who's in Florida, who I know through basically what started with that 5K video, come back now 10 years. She's a doctor from all that. And she was like, hey, I have a podcast. We had an editor. It wasn't really working out. But, here's something that we want to try to push out every couple weeks. Is it something that interests you? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And now that's someone who's like, she's going to send me 2 or 3, 4 episodes a month to just edit, and then she'll schedule them and post them. But it's just, that's kind of, I guess, the best way to maybe combat some of those down months. Because it is, like you said, John, it's kind of a roller coaster where some months you're doing great. Other months you're just, like you don't make as much as nearly you think. So.
Yeah. And I think you hit on a very important point too, is like, there's almost like two types of clients out there, like the one-off clients or projects, and then like the retainer type of, maybe it's not an official retainer, but like the recurring work type of clients where, they'll always send you work. Like weddings, they're kind of like one and done, yep, unless someone else in the family gets married or like they know someone that's going to get married.
Yep.
But, it's like you have to choose one or the other or a mixture of both, and hopefully during those down months, you can have more retainer-based clients or like, recurring work.
Yeah, and I would say that's where, going back to why I think maybe event videography is a little bit better than weddings, is weddings might pay more initially, but event work, as long as you do a good job, it's going to be there every year as long as they're having that event. Again, I'm sorry I give you guys so many examples. These are just real-life examples that we have in our business. There's a week in May where we did this event 2 years ago. They have it every 2 years. We're going to go to Columbus on Tuesday, or we're going to go to Columbus on Wednesday. The event is Thursday. There's another event that we do that's on Friday. And then there's another event that we do every year that's on Saturday. So think of it like, yeah, I could have said yes to a wedding on Saturday, but instead I've kind of built up these events that I do every year. They all just happen to fall at kind of a bad time, like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But that's kind of like 3 weddings in a row, just boom, boom, boom. And one of them I have to edit. The other 2 you won't have to edit, because they're live events. So it's like, that's where I think events are really, really key to kind of get in on, because they are recurring. And they might not feel like a retainer, but they are, because every year they come back to them.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Awesome. Well, that is good tips on that. And I want to transition because kind of to how we met and like what you're looking for in a video editor, and kind of like a little bit of the hiring process, or kind of like what you look for in video editors. So you reached out, I believe last April we met, gave me a few projects, went pretty well, hired me more. Do you want to kind of talk about the process of what you look for when it comes to freelance video editors, what you look in hiring a video editor?
Yeah, of course. And I'm going to be honest with you, John. You're really the first editor we've ever hired in the Cleveland Video Company world. Josh and I both know how to edit. So we've kind of been tackling that work this whole time. And again, there's a lot of trust that you have to give someone to edit. So sometimes that makes it a little hard. I think if you're an editor trying to work with someone else, just know that like if they're the ones doing the editing, like myself, we're kind of trusting you with our project now, hoping you can do it, as good or as better than us. John does it better than me, I'll already tell you. So it's like, trying to find someone who can is always a little tricky. But I think one of the things we look for, for me that really impressed me, and I'm just going to talk about you, John, is one, speed. Like the way you get videos back to us, it's very quick. It's crazy quick. Like I think the first project we gave you had it back in like 4 days, and it was kind of a big project. It was like, hey, here's not a huge project, but it was like, hey, here's 5-6 interviews, here's a bunch of B-roll, turn it into 3 minutes and make it good. And you did a fantastic job. And it was like one of those things where it's like me and Josh would have stressed out about that for like a week or two, and then we would have like rushed it and did it. But instead, we handed it off to you. You did a phenomenal job, and you get it back to us in a couple days. So I think speed is really one, and then also I think pricing is another thing too. I was talking to another video company owner, I guess you would call him, and we've had this conversation quite a bit because he's hired a couple different editors, and the one thing that really bothered him is like, he had a job where it was pretty simple job or whatever. It was just someone on stage, 2 cameras, 45-minute talk. You got to cut between the angles of the person talking on stage. Pretty simple. If you're a video editor and you can't do that, then I don't know, maybe you should do something else. So, but this person, it took them like, they gave him a bill for like 30 hours to do something like that. And he was like, okay, that's crazy. Like this would have taken me like 2 hours maybe, or 3 hours. And I'm not going to say you're always going to be as fast as someone else, but being honest with how long it takes you and using a time tracker, like I use a service called toggle.com, but using something to actually track your time, so you're not just kind of making it up, I think is very valuable. And just being, again, very honest with how many hours it takes you and trying not to gouge someone. Because I think that's where a lot of fear comes in is I'm going to send you a wedding video to edit and you're going to say, hey, here's my rate. And then you're going to tell me it took you 25 hours. And it's like, well, that's not really how much I had in the budget. And I think what I try to do with you, John, and hopefully you appreciate it, and you can tell me if you don't, is I always try to tell John from a video editor or from the business owner side, hey, here's how much budget I have for you. Like, let me know if that's okay. So I think as an editor, if you're watching this, asking the company owner, hey, how much do you have to budget for me to do this? So then you can kind of know how, far you can go into the edit and how much you can like dive in, versus if I only say, hey, I only have 5 hours, just what can you do in 5 hours? I don't know if that answered your question, John, but
I think that's a very good point. I feel like knowing kind of like the budget and like how long it's going to take is beneficial not only for the business owner that's hiring the video editor, but also for the video editor. Because like you might tell me, hey, hey, John, I only have 2 hours to do this. I'm going to be like, well, I'm fast, but I'm not that fast. And I can maybe be honest and be like, well, I can do like half of it, or like, depending, what the project is,
Yeah. And I think, again, obviously, having a website, showing what you've done in the past. I think that was another reason that really attracted me to you, John, is you had a site, you had work already on there. Even if that work is on Instagram or if that work is on YouTube, just somewhere to show people what you've done is very key, which again, that should be obvious, but that's something that you have to have.
Nice. Yeah. I think proof of work is so important. Like for me, I have my YouTube channel, so I have tutorials and different things I put on there, but also like a portfolio on my website of different event types, like corporate events, nonprofit events.
Yeah, and again, speaking about you, John, I recommend you to people all the time, and they're like, "Well, how is he? What's he doing?" I was like, "Dude, he has a YouTube channel with like 400 videos on it about editing. Like he knows how to edit." John's proof of work is in his YouTube channel. It's like clearly he knows how to edit. He's making videos about editing. But again, and I think for us, one of the things that stopped me from hiring an editor for a long time, John, is we edited in Final Cut Pro. So because we didn't go to, I don't know, it was $300 in 2013, and it wasn't like, it didn't have the Adobe Cloud back then, so it's just what we started with. So I think one of the things that always scared me was like, well, someone edits in Adobe, like John, and it's like, what do we do if we have to edit something? Or what if we have to transfer files? And I think the best thing to do if you're a business, I'll say business owner, then editor. If you're a business owner, give the person that you're thinking about hiring editing, give them a job or give them a project that maybe isn't your most important project, obviously, but just give them a small project to start with and be like, here's my budget for you. Give them a try. If it works out, awesome. You just got to slowly kind of build up the editor to be like, yes, they can do bigger and better things for me. Or maybe they can't. And maybe it's like, hey, they're really good at just this thing. I'm going to keep them just doing that thing. If you're an editor, just again, be honest with the business owner and don't try to like fluff your work up and then let them down. Like if you've never edited a wedding, don't tell them you've edited 10, 15 weddings. Just be like, I've never edited a wedding, but I really want to learn. I really want to try. It's like, okay, like great. Like let's give it a try. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
As a business owner, and I'm kind of also in this boat, sometimes I have projects and I want to outsource the work or maybe have someone help. How do you determine when you get a project, should I do it myself or should I try to find another editor or someone else to do it for me? How do you go through that decision process?
Yeah, I think it's based on your availability. And then going back to that family thing, John, these people in your lives that you love. Sometimes you might have a prior commitment that's with your family, or, my stepdaughter plays basketball on Saturdays. So it's like, hey, this might be our last basketball game of the year. And they just called me for an event on Saturday. It's like, I should do it because I want to make money, but also maybe I should hire someone else to do it so I can go be with my family at this, kind of important moment. But I think a lot of the time, some of it comes down to budget. If a client has some budget for you to pay an editor, then rock and roll and do that. And just a lot of it comes down to, I think, budget and speed. And then something that also we run into a lot, John, is just being double booked. With our schedules, sometimes, Josh and me can't be in two places at once, or maybe just Josh can go somewhere, just I can go somewhere. I know, John, I hired you for something, it was in a month or so ago, where I was actually shooting a wedding for a friend. And then I was like, they called me and I was like, I can't be in two places at once, but I can trust John with this. Like, this is something I know John's well more capable to handle. So then I, obviously hired John to go do that for us.
Yeah, I think that's some good advice. One last question about the video editing side of things that I wanted to ask you. Other than speed, what is the most underrated skill a video editor could have?
Oh, that's a good question. Other than speed, what is the best thing a video editor can have? Other than speed, they're probably very organized. And when you send them, they can pay attention to details very well, and they're very organized. So like when I send someone something to edit, you don't want to have to repeat yourself. You might have to repeat yourself once, but you don't want to have to do it 2 or 3 times. Like, hey, did you read the email that I sent initially that had this, in there? So I think just making sure you're on top of it and knowing, okay, here's what they said. Here are the edits, even maybe taking that into a Google Doc and going like, here's what they mentioned and that I need to fix. Because I think if you can be fast, but if you send back something and I said, hey, I thought you were supposed to cut this shot out, and you didn't do it because you just, skimmed over the email. I think that's a lot of times where editors it could be more annoying to work with an editor than just do it yourself. And again, I will speak for myself. I've definitely done that with clients too, where they've sent edits and I miss certain things and send it back to them. And they go, hey, Wade, you never added our logo at the end like we talked about. And you go, oh, yeah, we did talk about that on the phone. I didn't note it down. So it's just, paying attention to detail and also being organized enough to make sure that the edits you deliver are the right edits.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, organization and like being thorough, attention to detail, all of those are really, really important, I think, being a video editor.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. A few other questions I had. So when it comes to running a business, one thing I wanted to ask you, what is the number one thing you struggle with most running your business?
Oh, yeah. It would most likely be all I'll call them admin tasks of running your business. That could be even just sending invoices, sending contracts, going to meetings, running your QuickBooks or your accounting. I think number one for me would be like running our accounting, which is probably why we hired an accountant, just to make sure we're doing everything correctly. But I think going, just all those little admin tasks, because no one really wants to do them. Like even right now, something you just reminded me of, John, that I've been avoiding is we use a mile tracking app for like when we drive. It's called Mile IQ.
Oh, that's the one I use.
Yeah, it's fantastic, but I do it like 2 or 3 times a year. I don't do it like every day. So I just go into like, I log in online and I like go back through my calendar, log in online, put them side by side, and I like try to figure out all my things that I can log as business or personal. And again, that's something where it's like if I just did it every day or kept up with it once a week, it would be so much simpler, but I don't. So I think that's one of the harder things to do is just like making sure you're doing all the right things. And then also, just keeping up with them, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I can speak for that. That's the one of the hard truths I realized when I left, Rock the House, started my own business is like, oh, I have to do accounting. I have to do invoicing. I have to write contracts. I have to, keep track of things.
and just knowing like what the best software and stuff to do all that is. Like the reason we probably both selected MileIQ because it's intuitive, it's very easy. You're not like writing it on a piece of paper. But yeah, it's finding those things in business that will make your life easier to make those things a little better. Like I know a lot of people have been using, like everyone's using ChatGPT now, but I've been using it a lot to just like clean up my emails and clean up my contracts because before it's just me typing it out and then I go, okay, I just put in ChatGPT and make this more professional. And I don't copy and paste it directly from there, but I'm like, that is really good. And I just like take parts of it and put it in there, which I think are helping just like, again, come up with ideas. Or I just did this with another client. We're going off the topic of the, what the annoying things are, but with another client in ChatGPT, they sent me, hey, here's what we want to do, like with a video project. And I just put it in ChatGPT. I said, give me 5 ideas for what this email said. And it gave me 1 or 2 that were good. The other 3 were like, okay, those are dumb. But it's like just finding tools in your business to make everything easier. So you're not doing it all yourself.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, what is your plans for the future? How do you see your business growing? Any plans for the future? I know you're raising a family. Is that your priority or is it growing the company? Kind of tell me what's the future of Wade the Video Guy?
The future of Wade the Video Guy. That's a great question, John. I think right now, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, it's kind of just maintain status quo. To be honest, it's like we're really happy with where our business is at. We're not necessarily trying to grow and have this 20-person company. We're very content with me and Josh being the owners and then hiring subcontractors like yourself, John, to come help us with projects. But I think ultimately the goal would be to have a couple more employees to just help us. Again, we've talked about hiring this guy to help us do those admin tasks. And just getting to a point where we're comfortable enough where we can have people, that we can trust that are, part-time or maybe full-time and that can kind of help us run some of the business. So ultimately we can spend more time with our families. Because I think that's something where hopefully this helps a couple people out there. But when I first was doing the business when I was younger, 23 to maybe like 26, 27, any gig I got, I would say yes, because I wanted to, grow this business and make it better. But what I started to learn is I was missing out on things that were important to like, I didn't have my kids at the time or anything like that, but I was missing out on weekends and stuff with my, my parents and stuff that were really important to them. And then, so it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I just said, there's a couple weekends a year where I just won't work no matter what. I have there are already plans. There are events that go on that my family goes to. There are a lot of car shows, to be honest, because my dad's a big car guy. But there's like 3 or 4 weekends a year. There's always a car show on that weekend. And no matter what it is, I basically always say no to it. There's really nothing that can get me to not go to that unless it's like life-changing, or someone comes in and they're like, we can do an hour live stream and we'll pay you $25,000. You're like, okay, then I guess, Dad, I might have to take this. But that's not going to happen. I know the one year I had 5 wedding leads come in, 5 on that one day where I'm supposed to go to Dayton. And I was like, nope, going to Dayton. I was like, just, and you're just like, it's just, I think as you get into this world, you're going to get to a point of you're working so hard to build your business that you're losing out on, other people's weddings that you wanted to go to, not film. You're missing out on trips with your family. You're missing out on such and such. So I think you need to just set your priorities straight of being like, when this thing comes up, there's nothing I that will get me to not go. Like one of my best friends is getting married September 20th of next year. And I told him, he said, I'm getting married in September. I said, let me know as soon as you have a date. I will make sure that nothing comes in my way. Because the worst is when you book something and then your best friend's getting married and it's on the same day and you're like, now I got to hire someone else because I can't miss my best friend's wedding, So I think just prioritizing yourself and that, going back into the future of the business, it's just, I think we're just going to kind of maintain status quo for the next couple of years and then maybe make a plan in 2026, 2027. Like, what do we actually want to do with this thing? How much do we want to grow it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of almost kind of where I'm at too. I'm just kind of happy to be just doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Just
Me too.
enjoying
Yeah.
life.
I'm super happy with the way things are going. And again, like the projects we work on and stuff like that. And, the people we work with. I really like a lot of our clients and, I know it's not going to be like this forever, like, your clients will come and go, or one of our clients is moving out of their building and they're like, we're not going to have any events anymore. And you're like, dang, that was fun for 8 years. But like, so things will change. But I think, moving forward, we'll just have to kind of see what the future holds.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today. If people are interested and they want to reach out, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Wade the Video Guy. That's also why I liked John, because this is John the Video Guy. And or you could send me an email at wade@clevelandvideocompany.com, and I'd be happy to talk. I'm such a video nerd that I just love. I love talking video stuff. So
awesome. And for those that are listening or watching this, I'll leave it down in the show notes below, so feel free to get in contact with Wade. Wade, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to have you on the Post Show podcast.
John, thank you so much.